Afternoon, everybody, and welcome to radio.com and our afternoon program. I'll be with you until 6:30. We'll be joined at 6 by WFN in New York. We're obviously a day away from Football Friday, the last one of the season. As we get a little closer now, edge a little closer to the Super Bowl tomorrow, predictions and everything that comes with a Football Friday program. It's been kind of a quiet week with the Super Bowl because it has kind of been overshadowed by other developments, including obviously that everything that has dealt with the tragic occurrence out in California that has just pretty much set the sporting world on its ear, and that will be something the NFL will address on Sunday. The loss of Kobe Bryant, as it will the loss of Chris Dolman too. This past week, so the NFL is planning something there, which on a crossover sport shows you the impact that he had, without any question. Last night I was flipping around and I started watching something I hadn't seen in a long time, and it was a story about Dwight Clark. And I was around Dwight Clark. I was around college football when Dwight Clark was playing at Clemson, and he came on the radar for the Niners because he was asked to catch passes so they could work out Steve Fuller. Walsh had an interest in Steve Fuller, who was the All ACC quarterback for the Clemson Tigers, and the day that Clark worked out with Fuller, Fuller wasn't that good, but Clark was really good. He caught everything. He caught balls over his head. He caught balls on the ground. He picked balls up. He just had an amazing day, and he drew Walsh's interest. So the team, the personnel people, told Walsh that he could get him as a free agent, and he said, "No, I'm going to draft him late." He drafted him late, and he obviously took a liking to him. And it's well known that he hooked up with Joe Montana. They became this great tandem, and they made the play that launched really was the changing of the guard in the NFL. It was the end of the Dallas dynasty and the beginning of the Niner dynasty. But what you don't know if you don't watch it is just how really wild this outspoken and kind of outgoing wide receiver's life was. Clark had the beauty queen wife and everything else, but then he had a lot of stuff that was thrown at him in what turned out to be a rather short life. He suffered some financial setbacks, and then he got divorced. He moved back to the West Coast after spending time after his career ended. Obviously, he had great success with his career, as you know. But then came down with ALS, as you probably know the story by now. So here's a guy who, after this really incredible playing career, goes to work with common policy with the Browns. That's a flop. Leaves Cleveland, gets divorced, goes through bankruptcy, has to sell off all his Super Bowl rings, all his rings. He had to sell them all off. He was dead broke. Moved back to the West Coast, got his life back together, reunited with a lot of his Niner teammates, reunited with Eddie DeBartolo. Actually was able to later in life to buy back his Super Bowl rings that he wanted back. Went back to the guy who had bought them, and the guy actually was nice enough to sell them back to him so that he did have them later in his life. He wanted them back. One of the things is that when these guys hit rock bottom, that they have to sell, and it's always heartbreaking when you hear it, they have to sell their awards, whether it's an MVP award or a Super Bowl ring. And, I find it almost distasteful that someone would. I'd rather see someone lend the guy the money or just give him the money rather than take his Super Bowl ring. And I just don't understand how somebody wears something that somebody else earned. I've never understood that. Like people will buy somebody's rings or trophies or something. Why do you want somebody else's trophies? Why would you want somebody else's ring? You didn't earn that ring. That's why I always say about championship team rings. If it were me and I worked for a club, I personally wouldn't wear a ring from a team unless I was actually part of the team because I don't feel like I earned it. And if I was, now if I'm someone who has anything, if I'm a trainer, if I have anything to do with the team, if I'm a scout, yeah, you contributed, you're part of the team. But the peripheral rings that they give out, I just would be uneasy with that. I'd be uneasy with wearing something that I didn't feel like I earned because where's the pride in it if you didn't earn it? It's like taking somebody else's trophies or buying off someone else's ring, which to me is so distasteful. It's unbelievable. And it happens a lot. Well, he handled his, and you know how bad ALS is and how, debilitating it is and how tough it makes life and how trying it is. And he handled all that with such enormous grace and with a sense of humor and was so surrounded by his teammates and Eddie. Eddie DeBartolo has a lot of baggage. He's done some bad things. He's done some really good things. He's an incredibly generous guy. So he's a guy he's complex. And he obviously had a great relationship with Dwight to the point where Dwight actually ended up in Montana so they could be near Eddie. And Eddie took the goalpost from that Montana to Clark play that sent them to the Super Bowl, the catch, as you know it. And if you remember that play, Montana's almost sacked by Larry Bethea, and that was a third down play. And Dallas almost scored after that, if you remember the whole thing. But the play was so defining because of what it meant where Dallas was and what it meant where San Francisco was. But he took that goalpost and actually planted it on his ranch in Montana, and Dwight Clark is buried next to that goalpost. And on his tombstone there, it says, the dynasty began with you, is what it says. And I just thought it was very fitting because here this week, the Niners are back in the Super Bowl. Now, their link to Walsh and Montana and Rice and Young and Seifert and whomever and Ronnie Lott and an old favorite and everyone is never that far removed because they are the kind of patron saints of the Niners, just like the 70s Steelers are, just like Tom Landry is in Dallas, or Lombardi is in Green Bay, okay? And it's what Walsh and Montana and those guys are to San Francisco. And San Francisco's had a lot of success in this game, obviously. So when you see that as, that you remember that story, the great triumph, the incredible tribulations that he went through in his life, the better days that came and then the trying days that came again, and realize that this week, you've probably seen the catch somewhere, or you will see it in the next couple of days, or you'll see Montana somewhere, or, the Niners. But it all began with that rangy wide receiver who was buried near those goalposts on a ranch in Montana. And I just thought it was, it really fit this week where that tombstone said that headstone said the dynasty began with you. And it did in a very real way. As we get closer to the game and you start to dig things out, there's two there's 2 games that you jump to, 2 weeks that you jump to. And if you've heard me talk to guests this week, I've talked about how the thing Kansas City has to fear and has to guard against, and what it puts pressure on Spags to come up with a defense that makes sure this doesn't happen. But what Kansas City can't have happen is it cannot have them have San Francisco dominate everything with the running game. And this year, the Chiefs lost 3 games with Mahomes at quarterback. Remember, he was injured. They lost 3 games. In all 3 games, the opposing team had big running games. But the 2 games that just stand out, and I guarantee you that San Francisco has spent countless hours on this game, because you go to week 5 and the Colts-Chief game. And in that game, Indianapolis, which has a good offensive line and good running backs, and that game, Indianapolis showed you the prototype. And quite ironically, in the 3 games that they lost, because everyone's talked about the slow starts, in the 3 games that they lost with Mahomes this year, Kansas City scored first. 6 other times this year they didn't score in the first quarter. They did not lose any of those games with Mahomes when they didn't score in the first quarter. They lost none of them. 3 times they lost with Mahomes, they scored first in the game every time. So the idea that first score is that telling really just isn't true. But what is telling, what is enormously important, is the idea of having the other running game dominate the game in this way. It's not just the running attack. And that day the Colts ran for 180 yards, but the Colts ran 74 plays to the Chiefs' 57 plays. The Colts kept the ball for almost 38 minutes. The Chiefs had the ball for 22 minutes. And twice the Chiefs drove long drives and got field goals. So they wound up only scoring 13 points. The only time they were under 20 this year was this 19-13 loss to the Colts. They touched the ball just 9 possessions in that game. Anything under 10 would be a magic number for San Francisco, keeping the Chiefs to that many possessions. But think about it. They ran 74 plays to the Colts Chiefs 57 plays. And that's the greatest fear the Chiefs have, is that the other team is going to just click off yardage and time, play after play, while their offense just stands on the sideline idling by. And that would be the game plan. And it worked that week. And then the next week in week 6 against the Texans, they lost again. The Chiefs did. Now, the Chiefs defense got better later in the season, but this week again, it was run on. And this was after Kansas City got a 17-3 lead in that game. Texans ran the ball for 192 yards. They ran 83 plays to Kansas City's 47 plays and kept the ball for 40 minutes to 20 minutes for Kansas City. This is the Kansas City fear, that this game happens. In this game, they lost 31-24. There were some big plays in the game. They had a 17-3 lead, and they still did this to them with the running game. And there were parts in the second half where the Chiefs never had the ball. 83 plays to 47 plays. That's the best defense that San Francisco can put up. The best thing they can do is pin that Kansas City attack to the bench with their running game. And that is the greatest fear that Kansas City has. And those are the games they lost. They did lose the other game in a shootout to Tennessee. In that game, Tennessee ran for big yardage. There was a lot of big plays in the game. It was a 35-32 game. So those 3 games where they gave up big running yardage, but the 2 games that really jump out where the Chiefs were held to 24 and 13 points. And the Chiefs led in all three of their Mahomes losses. They scored first. And actually led the Texans game 17-3. But they allowed the opposing running game to completely dominate the time of possession and the game. And in neither game did the Chiefs get 10 possessions. That is the thing that will keep Andy up nights. It's not whether his offense will score. It's not whether his offense will handle the Kansas City pass rush. It's whether or not San Francisco can do this to him. Because this is how they get beat. In the 3 games they got beat with Mahomes, the opposing team ran the ball really well. All 3 times. Now, in the middle of the season, that Tennessee defense, that Kansas City defense didn't play that well. It just didn't. It got better as the season went on. And it did a good job. It did a good job in the middle of the game against the Titans when Baltimore didn't, when New England didn't. They did. They did a good job, a much better job than people think. So you got to give them credit for that. They deserve credit for that. And the thing that's got to happen here is they have got to disrupt. They have got to disrupt the coordination of the San Francisco running game. You see, in the game Tennessee won, Tennessee ran the ball well, but I don't use that game as much because they made big plays. And in that game, Kansas City had the ball a lot. They put up 530 yards. They scored 32 points. It was just a fluky game. The other 2 games are the prototypes. Weeks 5 and week 6. They're the prototypes. 40 minutes, 20 minutes. 38 minutes, 22 minutes. Big difference in number of plays, big difference in how many times each team touches the ball. Those are the fears that Kansas City has. Same thing the Giants did to the Bills when they beat the great Buffalo team the first time the Bills went to the Super Bowl against the Giant Parcells team. That year down in Tampa, everyone talks about the Giant defense and how it was constructed, the big nickel, the 2 linemen, all true. And what they did was they challenged Buffalo to run the ball, and they thought that they could get by tackling Thurman Thomas and keeping them out of the end zone that way, and they did. And Thurman Thomas had a huge game. He was the best player on the field that day. And Buffalo was actually fairly efficient with their offense. They scored 19 points in 19 minutes, but they never had the ball in the game. Actually, in real time, they didn't touch the ball. If you go by what the Giants did, down 12-3, the Giants got the ball back before the half and drove the length of the field. Then came that long halftime, and then the Giants got the ball to start the third quarter and kept it for 9 minutes and scored another touchdown. So Jim Kelly never touched the ball for an hour and a half of real time. And he didn't touch the ball from when the Giants were down 12-3 until the Giants were up 17-12. He didn't touch the football for an hour and a half. And in the game, he only touched the ball for 19 minutes and put up 19 points. And could have put up 22 if they had made a field goal. It wasn't a chip shot, though. It was a long field goal. The point is, though, that their running game dominated the day, controlled the clock, kept the Bills on the sideline. And that is the way you want to play against this lethal Kansas City offense. But that is the fear that Kansas City has, is that San Francisco attack can do this to them. Their fear is not that San Francisco's going to score. Their fear is that they're going to hold the ball for 10 minutes at a time and shorten the game down to where the Kansas City never feels like it's on the field the entire day. That's the game they can't win, and that's the game they didn't win in the regular season. And that's the game that they scored 13 points against the Colts. Chiefs scored 40 points a couple times this year. They scored 50 once. They scored in the 30s a lot. They scored in the 20s every week except one. They were over 23 points every time except one game. 23 is not a lot for them. An average day is a 30-point game. That's about an average day. Do I think the winner will score 30 points in this game? I do. I think the winner will be right around 31 or something like that. If I had to guess, I'd be right. That's always a little hard to predict because you just don't know which way the ball's going to bounce or who's going to return it, who's going to get a cheap touchdown or a blocked punt or a muff on the 5 or a kick return. But I still think the winner's going to be somewhere around 30-ish. It makes some sense. But that is their great fear. San Francisco's great fear is that they get out there and things are moving really fast. And Kansas City jumps out quick, and they just never catch up to the breakneck speed that Kansas City has. And they just never seem to get any confidence in their coverages all day. That's a much more unlikely scenario than the one that San Francisco can do to Kansas City, because that one is a much easier one to implement. That one is as basic as just running the football. And all of a sudden you're in these drives and it's, man, you look up and you say, man, the Niners have had the ball forever. And you see them getting itchy over, because then when they get in the game, they're itchy and they want to get going fast, and they just don't ever feel a comfort level with their offense. They don't get a rhythm going with that offense, because when Kansas City gets a rhythm, when they get a rhythm going, when all of a sudden you just notice that now there's a rhythm to their offense, they're lethal. They're absolutely lethal. And you want to try and disrupt that rhythm all day, or more intentionally and importantly, keep them on the sideline. San Francisco's running game is the entire key to this game. No one's going to shut down the Kansas City passing attack. That's never going to happen. They're going to make some plays. But a lot of times you get in these games and you say, man, they can't protect their quarterback. And that turns out to be the key to the game. Despite San Francisco's prowess in that area, I do not think that will be the dominant factor in this game. I think this running attack and how Spags attacks this vaunted zone blocking attack that San Francisco uses so well and has dominated the postseason with, that is it. That is the essence of this game. Everything else falls in behind it. And, listen, football's a simple game. If you're having success running the ball, you don't change anything until they prove that they can stop you. There's nobody that's running the ball and getting, 7 a pop and 8 a pop and first downs and moving the ball and keeping the team off balance. And you can see how debilitating it is. Nobody just stops that and says, all right, enough of that. Let's now throw the ball. No. You make them show you they can stop that. They have to disrupt that. And it's going to be very interesting. And it's going to put a lot of pressure on Spagnuolo, who obviously has orchestrated a very big victory in a Super Bowl game as a defensive coordinator. Now gets a chance to do it again. Could this selfishly for him mean another chance at his own team eventually? Yeah, it could. It definitely could. You never know. He'll have won a couple of Super Bowls as coordinator in different spots against different type teams with different game plans. So, yes, it's a big day for him. And we all know what kind of day it is for Andy Reid. We all know how, Andy might get in the Hall of Fame anyway when you look at his record because it is exemplary. He's got a coaching tree that's enormous. He's been a real, father of the modern passing game. He's got a lot of coaches who have gone on to great success. He's taken his branch of the Holmgren Walsh tree and turned it into a very successful branch in its own right. 14 times he's won 10 or more games. He's already won over 200 games lifetime. He's won 14 playoff games. He's taken a second team to a Super Bowl. He's had a great career. He just needs this game. This game, and he's in the Hall of Fame as a first ballot Hall of Famer on roller skates. That's how much difference it makes. And nobody needs to know that more than him. He'll do it with a sense of humor. But, hey, there's nobody in that building, nobody anywhere who wants this game more than that man does. Nor should they. Now, I don't know this. This is not a scientific thing. I know right now that it's a hot ticket. In that the ticket prices have not collapsed at all. Now, the secondary market is controlled much tighter than it used to be because the NFL controls so many tickets themselves. So the game has changed there radically. But a lot of times the ticket price starts to fall, and then you find out what the demand is. And the demand has been exceedingly high. And there is this premise that Kansas City will be there in force and that this will be a Kansas City building. Why? Because how much closer they are to the game, but also because they haven't been there in such a long time. There's a feeling that Kansas City is just crazed and that they will be very much represented in that building. We'll see. You never can tell that till you get in the building. And all of a sudden you say, I remember being there in New Orleans for the Packers and the Pats that time. And I was like, man, this is like we're in Green Bay. The Pats were there under Parcells. They hadn't been there in a very long time. It was the first time for the Crafts, and it was all new experience and everything else. But Green Bay showed up en masse. And it seemed like anyone who was neutral was rooting for the Packers because when the Packers would score, the place would be in, you thought you were in Green Bay. That's rare that that building gets one-sided to that length. Usually it's pretty even. I got a feeling this is going to be a Kansas City building. Now, they wear the same color, so that's going to be a bit of a problem. So you're going to see a lot of red everywhere you go. We know that. But I think it will be a building that leans rather one-sidedly to the Chiefs, unless I miss my guess. All right, we got a lot more to do. The Fan at 6. We'll be right back. Tomorrow, all the picks and everything else. But let's get some thoughts on the game from Charles Davis. Charles, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing well, Mike. How about yourself?
All right, Charles, give me some thoughts. Go ahead. What's on your mind?
Well, when you look at this game, it's pretty simple, isn't it? Great offense, superior defense. But then let's not forget, when you flip it around, San Francisco can score, and Kansas City's improved on defense. I'm not going to get all cliche here and everybody's going to jump on kicking game and all the other stuff. Forget that. Can they get to Mahomes and make him get off his mark enough to be somewhat inaccurate? Because that's really what it comes down to. The kid is really, really special. And then on the other side, can they stop San Francisco from bludgeoning them in the run game?
They got to stop. That's it. They have to stop the running game. They can't have them keep the ball for 40 minutes. Can't limit their possessions. To me, that's the essence. The rest, I think, we can write the script, I think, ourselves. That's the one thing. And how they are going to do that. How is Spags going to get them to make them throw the ball, to make them to make them be second and 12? How do you get in there? I mean, what is it? Run blitzes? Do you want to get aggressive with your safeties? Do you want to? You're going to have to take some chances. You're going to have to expose some things down the field. You cannot allow them to just knock off 5 and 6 yards a carry. That can't happen.
Yeah. You're going to have to play chess with Kyle Shanahan. Spags and Kyle are going to have to play chess with each other, because if you're going to take those chances, Mike, which makes a lot of sense, because I'd much rather put it in the hands of Garoppolo and sleep better if he beats me, as opposed
also,
to
you want them to play
fast-paced.
You just want them to play up and down the field. You don't want them to take 40 minutes and keep me from getting the ball all night.
Yeah, if you play fast-paced, now we're playing full-court basketball. And that plays into your hands because you have a full-court basketball operator on your side. If they hold it for 40 minutes, he doesn't get to play.
Yeah, and the games they lost,
that you can't have.
The games they lost this year, 2 of the 3 losses with Mahomes, the other team had the ball almost 40 minutes in both games. I mean, and they ran the ball great. I mean, the Colts held them to 13 points because the Chiefs never had the ball. So, right. So that's the thing. And honestly, when you look at it, they've seen 8 in the box more than any team in the league. They've seen 8 in the box 34% of the time, so that's not going to fool them. So the question is, what are you going to do that's different? Or can you just have players who can get penetration and cause disruption? Can Jones do that? Can guys on Kansas City do that? Now, they did a good job against the Tennessee running game, better than other people did. This is actually harder to stop, though.
It certainly is, because where do you bring your pressure that works with this offensive line that's really in sync? And if you take a man for man, now you're saying, if you're looking at it at the top, Mike, you're saying, okay, Ben Garland's in for Weston Richburg. Can we attack him? He's played pretty well. Mike Person, who missed some time with a shoulder injury, he's back, and he played fairly well last time. But you would think you attack him as opposed to Laken Tomlinson, who's a little bit better player in my estimation. And then both tackles are superior players. So that means inside you have your 4-man front. Chris Jones has got to win all of his battles inside, and you're going to try and attack him over Person and Richburg. Derek Notty's got to win his battles inside, especially in the run game, to allow your linebackers, because Reggie Ragland became a better part of their run defense. You got to allow those guys a chance to get there. But if those guys are climbing, if we get into all these football cliches, and they win at the line of scrimmage and climb to the second level, then you're dead in the water and you're playing run defense as you were earlier this year in Kansas City. Lately, a lot better. Remember, Derrick Henry was good early. They got it together, only 8 yards after getting first 61. That's the kind of game they have to have, but it's a different running attack because they stretch you in San Francisco. They don't just beat you up like Tennessee tries.
Yeah, they gotta get some guys who can get some penetration and be disruptive. Now, to me, that's why I think he's wanted this game his whole life. That's why the Honey Badger could have a big game. He could be, because he could play that disruptive game at the line of scrimmage. They could use him in that kind of role. It'll be interesting to see if they do.
I would agree with that. I also think Daniel Sorensen is a terrific tackler in those short areas. Everybody remembers him now for the great play against the fake punt. But if you watch him on tape, that is his strength, is tackling in the box area as a second safety. Now, here's your problem you're running into. The way Kyle Shanahan designs plays, and we talk about him playing chess, if you're committing that much to the run, I believe he has confidence in Garoppolo throwing the football.
I think he does too. I agree. And he's got a great tight end. He's got a great tight end.
Great tight end, yes. Right? Great tight end.
Right.
You got your run action, but now Emmanuel Sanders gets a chance to emerge. Deebo Samuel continues to evolve as he has throughout the second half of the season and into the playoffs. You give these people opportunities. If Kendrick Bourne doesn't drop the ball, he makes nice plays downfield. And if you're throwing it into those one-on-one situations because you got somebody committed to the run, that's something that I would think that Garoppolo would have a good chance of accomplishing it quite well.
Listen, I think they're going to move the ball. I have no questions with that. I don't want them to play keep away if I'm Kansas City.
Right.
That's what I worry about. I don't worry about them scoring. I really don't. And it's funny. Everyone says, well, Kansas City can't get off the slow start. You know, the 3 games Kansas City lost this year with Mahomes, they scored first. I mean, 6, 7 times they were scoreless in the first quarter. They won all those games. I mean, so it doesn't matter with them. They score in bunches anyway, but they need to get the ball. And the games where the other team had the ball and ran, I mean, the Texans ran 84 plays to their 47. I mean, that can't happen in this game. I mean, if that happens, you know, they're going to be standing up. Mahomes is going to be flipping the ball on the sideline a long time. I mean, that's what you don't want to happen.
And points will be scored because San Francisco puts points up. People forget they average about 30 points.
Yeah, they're a good offensive team. I mean, and I'm sure I didn't do it, but I'm sure Spags did. I was trying to figure out why. I was going to go back and look at the game. Washington lost to them 9-0, and they didn't score a touchdown, and they didn't move the ball all day. I don't know if that was bad weather or what the deal was as to why Washington was so successful, but there were very few games where San Francisco did not move the ball well all year. Very few.
Part of it was monsoon. It was the absolute monsoon there. Second part was I think that once Kyle realized where they were and got a lead, he just put it all in the hands of his defense. He wasn't that worried about it that day. And you know that Washington attack wasn't anything that would scare you throughout the season, even in good weather. And in bad weather, it scared him even less, and he let the defense feast, and they pitched a shutout that night. But when you're watching this game, and to your point, and I think I'm co-signing with you, remember your NCAA days when you're sitting on that desk, Mike, and you remember Michigan, Loyola Marymount? And Michigan went up and down the floor with them and had the greatest day of their lives. They thought it was so much fun in the NCAA tournament and got beat like 149, 115, didn't even realize they were down 30. That's what San Francisco wants to avoid with Kansas City. It's just to your point. Kansas City wants to be Loyola Marymount, get as many shots. Let's do this thing. Let's play it. San Francisco doesn't want to play that game because if they do, even though they score, it's not quite the same. And it's just not how they want to play this one. But I'm telling you, to your point, if Kansas City doesn't slow them down and they beat them up and hold the football, we'll have more shots at Patrick Mahomes, as you said.
Yeah, that'll be and a very quick
watching him on the field,
and a very quick game too. I mean, listen, what people don't realize is, you know, everyone always talks about the game plan for the Super Bowl when the Giants beat the Bills is in the Hall of Fame. And it was a good game plan. But the best part of the day for the Giants was the fact that they ran the ball down their throat and kept it for 40 minutes. They kept the ball for 40 minutes. The Bills scored a point a minute, which is pretty good. Now, they didn't get beat with the pass. They let Thurman run it. They played 2 down linemen. They did some smart things. They tackled well. But the Bills still scored a point a minute. The point was they never had the ball the whole game. And that's the game that if I'm Kansas City, I'd be worried about. I can't have this game where this team just has me on the sideline the whole day and I run 40 plays and they run 80.
And Otis Anderson was that bludgeon.
Yes.
He was that hammer, the best set of thigh pads outside of Earl Campbell in that ball game because he held the ball. Now for San Francisco, it could be 2 or 3 different guys that'll do that for them. Mostert won't start because they got the superstition. They like how it goes.
And Coleman, I guess, is going to play. I guess he's going to play, right?
Yeah, I think he's going to play. And if he's going to play, he will start. And then they'll go with the hot hand. And Breida, they'd love to get more attempts.
Right.
But the ball's been on the ground too much lately, Mike. Every time we've seen him in the playoffs, the ball's popped out at some point. Kyle Shanahan's not going to risk that early in the game if he doesn't have to. So that's what we're going to have to look out for. And by the way, George Kittle will get a couple of runs as well, too, just to keep things off balance.
Yeah, he's had a very quiet postseason because of the way they've played. We're talking with Charles Davis. Conversely, it's going to be a very tough matchup for San Francisco with their secondary against Kansas. Not that it isn't for everybody, but, you know, they're going to have to play more corners than they really have. That's the question. Yeah. And they can act like Sherman can play anybody, but Sherman can't play Hill. So we know that. You got to – I don't care who's playing Hill, you got to double them. So we know that. You got to have a safety over the top against Hill. Otherwise, they're going there every single play. So we know that's the case. And I guess most people seem to feel they'll be reluctant to play any man at all. You think they'll play any man at all against Kansas City?
They'll play some to mix things up. I don't think Robert Saleh is going to totally shy away from that. He's got to give them different looks along the way. But I think they'll be predominantly zone in this game because you've got to keep things in front with that speed. Because, we can make every joke we want and every line has been written about the track squad, but it's real. This isn't just us making it up because those guys aren't just going to catch the football. I feel like Andy Reid.
He's going to spread them out,
evolved.
No question. Yeah.
I see, and I think Andy's evolved as a play caller too, Mike, from his Philadelphia days, where he absolutely refused to run the ball in certain situations. Now, I think he'll actually run it, but he runs it differently because he has those guys. Tyreek Hill will get some carries, Watkins will get some carries, McCole Hardman may get some carries, and Travis Kelce will get the shovel passes, some wildcat. They will keep things going, so it won't just be Damian Williams coming at you. They'll stress you on the edges. Williams will hit you in between the tackles, and then, of course, all that hippa-dippa, as Bob Cousy used to call it. Now it turns into Mahomes looking downfield and trying to find a couple of targets.
And Mahomes is not afraid to turn it up, as we've seen now.
He'll turn it up.
Yeah, especially in these games where we're talking with Charles Davis, you're playing coverage and you turn your back, and next thing you know, here he comes, and he's 20 yards down the field before you even see he's there.
Yeah, and nothing is more demoralizing. Two things are really demoralizing to a defense, Mike. One, getting run over as Minnesota did and as Green Bay did, right?
Yep.
Two is 3rd and 10
and getting beat on a run.
Quarterback hot foots it for 11.
In a playoffs. That's a devastating play, and absolutely you played coverage, you did everything right, and you got beat. I agree. Is a completely, and Mahomes can do that a lot. And I don't know if he ranks if he's worthy of a spy, but he's going to do that in key spots in the game.
Well, that's why this where zone comes into play, because as you said, you're probably not going to spy him, but you need eyes back towards him for two reasons. One, the reason we just talked about, his ability to get out of the pocket, and now his willingness to run it. But the second thing is his delivery is so quick. You remember the first touchdown he threw to Tyreek Hill against Tennessee?
Yep.
And it went right over the head of the defender and right into Tyreek Hill's arms. You've got to be able to see the football because you can't react to it if your head is turned or your back is to the play, because all those guys who play with their back and then try and go up through the arms of the receivers, with the delivery of Mahomes and the dispatch the ball gets there, you can't make that play. You've got to have eyes on him so you can have a chance to react.
All right, a couple of things here around the league. Number one, you got a lot of big quarterback rumors right now. First one in New Orleans. Breeze may be retiring. You think he is or he isn't?
I think he continues to play, but if they don't, I'll put it to you this way, if it's not handled perfectly for them, then he may very well retire rather than feel like he's doing the token appearance.
Because it sounds like they want Hill to be their quarterback. A lot of you wonder if that's true. I mean, it's very, and Bridgewater might leave to go to another team too.
And if you had asked me this before the season, I would have said Bridgewater's the quarterback. Let Taysom Hill continue to be Inspector Gadget. But something keeps reverberating through my head that I heard multiple times, having covered New Orleans multiple times this year. Sean Payton has said Taysom Hill is Steve Young. And after a while, I'm starting to believe that he believes that he could be Steve Young. That's why I could see Taysom Hill taking over that team.
All right, Brady, New England, Chargers, Tennessee.
I'm still stuck on New England despite the place being cleared out at the stadium and this, that, and everything. I still feel like Belichick, Josh McDaniels staying there is a better option because they will continue to upgrade for him there. You're rolling the dice at other places. I know he's tight with Vrabel in Tennessee. Maybe you feel off of Derrick Henry and a few receivers potentially. I just don't see the Chargers.
Rivers, who's out of the Chargers, does he go to Indy or does he go to Tampa? Both are rumored.
To me, Tampa would be ahead of Indy because of Bruce and the uncertainty with Jameis there. I really feel like Indy's a little more committed to Brissett as opposed to Tampa Bay right now with Jameis. When Bruce says at the end of the year, I've won games with a lot of different quarterbacks, he was sending a clear message to Jameis.
We know what's going on in the draft with the first pick in Cincinnati. Do you think that Tua goes inside 5 picks, Does he go to Miami or does he go somewhere else in a trade up? Someone trade up and take him.
If no one tinkers with it, Miami at 5 is absolutely the lowest landing point for him. I do think some people are going to try and get up there, and I think Detroit's phone with Bob Quinn will be the first phone that will ring to get inside of those teams and try and make it work. And I'm not ruling out Detroit thinking about taking a quarterback themselves. They got a first-hand look at Justin Herbert all week at Senior Bowl last week.
And Herbert made himself, everyone says now, a top 10 player. So it sounds like he's moved himself into the top 10 also. So now you have 3 quarterbacks, counting 2 or 3 quarterbacks in the top 10.
And maybe 4 in the top 15 because the kid out of Utah State, Jordan Love, is going to get a whole lot of attention. 32 and I believe 6 2 years ago. Last year was 20-17, but he had 9 starters missing, brand new head coach, brand new offense coordinator, and I think that he pressed it too much. I think he tried to make too many big plays too early, and it cost him and his team. I've seen that before. Matt Ryan threw a lot of interception at Boston College. He learned to temper it in the league too.
You think Roethlisberger is back with the Steelers?
I do. I absolutely do. After what we saw last year, healthy, I think they hit the reset button and try and work with him. And I think they continue to try and find other quarterbacks because I'm not sure they believe Mason Rudolph's going to be their future.
And you think that Indy sticks with Brissett, or do they go for a veteran quarterback?
I think that they're going to end up sticking with Brissett. I think that they like what they have. I know what Chris Ballard said, that he didn't lock it down, but he also was dinged up a lot last year too. I think that they go with him and continue to try and move forward.
Were you surprised by any of the assistants joining staffs, like even Jason with the Giants, or anything else?
Not really. Jason was probably the biggest surprise because I thought he would actually come out and join us, Mike. I thought he'd come out and join us for a year and then take over a head coaching job somewhere else because that seems to be a pretty good avenue. It's gotten to football a little bit like it used to with basketball. But I also felt like once he took the job, I thought to myself, Jerry took play calling from him. And I think Jason enjoys that part of the job. I think he was looking forward to getting back to doing that. He's got a pretty good pupil there in young Mr. Daniel Jones in order to get himself going again.
All right. So I have a feeling you like San Francisco. Am I right?
Yeah, I'm an old defensive guy, and when good defense plays good offense, I tend to lean that way. Mahomes can make you throw every statistic you have out the book. So right now I'm saying San Francisco by a point.
If Garoppolo's down late and the running game's not part of the equation, do you think he can drive the field and make the plays he needs to win the game?
He can, because I've seen him do it. I saw him do it against the Rams late to get the field goal to win it at the buzzer. I saw him do it against New Orleans when Drew Brees put all the pressure on him, having been down 9 and scoring twice and putting them up, and him finding a way back downfield, and even earlier in the game making bigger plays with his arm downfield. So I believe the answer is yes. I don't think we're going to have Bob Greasy's record broken of only 7 throws by Garoppolo in the Super Bowl.
No chance. Absolutely no. Absolutely. Don't be surprised if it's not in the first quarter. That isn't the case. Give me a guy in the game who you do these teams and you see them a lot. Give me a guy in this game who you think forget Mahomes, forget Garoppolo. Who do you think's going to have a big game?
I think Fred Warner, the middle linebacker for San Francisco, he's going to tag team with Quan Alexander at that second level. And I think that with that defensive front, those two can run free and have a chance to make plays. They'll have to make a lot of open field tackles because you know how much Andy's going to spread things out.
Does the San Francisco staff take a backseat to the veteran nature of the Kansas City staff, considering that you have Andy, who's been around forever and is very good with 2 weeks off, and then you have Spags, who has already, won a Super Bowl with a great defensive game plan? Does that give them an edge, or is it more even?
I think it's much more even, Mike, because you've met Kyle. Kyle never thought that he
I know his father. I don't really know Kyle. I know his dad. I don't really know Kyle very well.
Well, I will help you with what I know of Kyle. Kyle has never thought of himself as being the guy overmatched.
He's confident, right? He's confident, right?
He's extremely confident.
Right.
And
his dad was too.
In this run, and I do think in this run, Mike, I've seen it because it's not just the playoff run. They had a gauntlet of games that you well know during the season that were like playoff games. And I've seen him perform at that level. So yes, Andy and his staff have that experience. Spags has the rings as an assistant coach, that sort of a deal. I don't expect the San Francisco staff to look up at the lights and go, oh my God. Plus, don't forget, Kyle's already been through the calls. 28 threes enough to put it through anyone. And anyone who bounces back from that the way he has, I don't expect him to shy away from the next challenge.
You know, when the Eagles went to the Super Bowl, what people may not remember is they moved the ball all day on the Pats. They outgained them by 100 yards. They were great on third down. They just turned the ball over too much.
What they did was they attacked right from the word go. I talked with their staff in pregame. I remember talking with one of his, in fact, it was John DiFilippo, their quarterback's coach.
Yep.
And he said, look, we're going right after him. I mean, and he said it not in a way like he was trying to convince himself. He said it like it was a pure belief, and that's what we saw during the game. So don't expect San Francisco to just come out and just say, okay, we're just going to run. If the ability to throw the ball is there, they're going to take it. The only caveat you have is Garoppolo, sometimes a little loose with it, and in a game like this, you can't afford that key turnover at that time frame. He got away with one against Minnesota, right? And he almost had one in the last game against Green Bay, didn't get it. That's the thing you just worry about with him. But all in all, he's tamped that down over the second half of the year.
All right, thanks very much, Charles. Enjoy the game. Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
You do the same, Mike.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
All right, Charles Davis, Fox, he likes San Francisco, which, listen, the game's a one-point game, so it's virtually a toss-up. I'm not surprised that anybody likes anybody in this game. The Chiefs, who need no introduction with their offense and with their firepower. The Niners, who have great balance between offense and defense. They have a great pass rush. They have a great running game. I mean, there's a lot to like about San Francisco in this game. The question is, and I do think we're going to get a very good game. I do not think anybody's going to beat anybody up in this game. That would stun me if somebody won this game by, 21 or 24 points and we had a terrible Super Bowl. I would be stunned by that. I do not expect that to be the case. I think we're going to get a very, very good game here. Back after this.
New York Sports Radio. Mike's on. He'll get you the sports any way that he can. It's Mike Francesa on the Fan. Sports Radio 66 and 101.9 FM.
All right, Mike, here we go.
All right, a little after 6 o'clock on this Thursday evening as we take you right up until 6:30. Quickie show for you as we have each and every evening. And, we're one day away, so we'll save all the analysis for tomorrow, give you picks and everything in the 6 o'clock hour tomorrow as we get ready for Super Bowl 54. Looking forward to it. I didn't even check to see what the weather is. I should check since I'm going to the game what the weather is for the game on the weekend. So let me see what the weather is going to be. It's going to be sunny and, I'm looking at what it is going to be in Palm Beach Sunday, which is only a couple miles away. It's going to be 70 degrees and sunny. 70 is a little chilly, considering it's going to be 80 on Friday. The high is going to be 70 degrees on Sunday and sunny. So that's nice. All right. So that's good weather for the game. So it looks like it's going to be, there's a little thunderstorms in the forecast on Saturday. People like Miami. See, the three venues that are no risk for the NFL are Los Angeles, Miami, and, of course, New Orleans. New Orleans is the most popular because everything is so accessible. The city is set up so well for conventions. It would be a very popular site, as would Vegas be although I still have trouble getting my arms around the idea of them playing that Super Bowl week in Vegas. But it would be a very, very popular setting, and it would be a very accessible setting because everything's right there. Same thing in New Orleans, everything's right there. Miami, it's still spread out because you have this whole issue where the game is all the way up where their stadium is virtually, almost in Fort Lauderdale. And they still have a lot of the stuff in downtown Miami where you're talking about South Beach, which is a long haul. So you have people spread out all the way from South Beach, all the way up into Broward County, all the way up to Hollywood, all the way up and even to Palm Beach, which is, you're talking with traffic, it could take you 90 minutes to get down there from up there to there. It's going to take you a good 90 minutes or so to get down there. But the weather's always good. There's something to do, and I think there's an idea that at least you went to a place where you can walk outside and it's not the dead of winter and there's something to do, and you can play golf or you can go out on a boat or it's scenic, that kind of thing. So and you're going to get good weather for the game 9 times out of 10. This game's is very attractive from a standpoint of the matchup, and I get the feeling. Now, I do know that because I talked to a couple of ticket brokers that I know who I've known through the years, and I always check in with them during the Super Bowl week to get an idea. Hey, tell me what's going on. And they said ticket is a expensive ticket. It has stayed up as an expensive ticket, number one. Number two, there's a feeling that Kansas City is really going to be a very aggressive, attendee of the game, and that this is going to be a Kansas City crowd. Now, the obvious things about that is Kansas City hasn't been there in 50 years. They have a rabid fan base at home, and they've been waiting for this for a couple of years. They've been sitting on ready, and it's San Francisco, so it's a long way to come. So there's a feeling that it's going to be a Kansas City crowd. I also think there's going to be a little bit of sentimentality towards Andy Reid for people who don't have anyone to root for. And I think Mahomes has become a very likable figure in the league, so I think there's a lot of that too. So I do think Kansas City becomes a little bit of the hometown favorite here in this game. And like I said, the ticket prices have stayed very, very high. And there's a lot of, at least the guys I talked to told me there was a lot of interest in the seats. Like sometimes people say, oh, the game is dead. Game is just dead. I'm not hearing that. I'm hearing that that this game, there's a lot of interest in seats and people looking for seats. So that's a good thing. I always like the idea that the game's attractive. See, one thing you would know is, having been to a million Super Bowls, if the Cowboys are in it or the Giants are in it, the ticket's going to be crazy hot. You don't even think about it. It's going to be hot, and it's even going to be hotter if it's a New York team. And we've never dealt with the Jets, so it's only been the Giants. But it's always crazy hot if the Giants are in it. And it's usually hot if Dallas is in it. That's usually the case. So it seems like it's going to be a little bit of a Kansas City crowd, number one. And they're a little bit, I think, of the sentimental favorite for the reasons I just gave you. But the game has plenty to whet your appetite. It's a very interesting matchup. It's a very interesting game from a technical standpoint. There's a lot of star power in the game. Both teams come in playing well. You can make a very good case for either team. So there's a lot to like here in this game. There really is. A couple of things here. Yankees Arenado. I mean, give me a break. Did the Yankees need another right-handed batter? I got to pay a fortune to. Give me enough. Right? Arenado's a wonderful player. That's what the Yankees need. Another right-handed hitting infielder. I mean, give me a break, please. That's crazy. And go somewhere else. I mean, this doesn't make any sense. The All-Star game. This has nothing to do with how they decide to honor Kobe Bryant. They can honor Kobe Bryant anyway. And someone brought up to me today, hey, why not have one team wear 8, the other team wear 24 in the All-Star game? That was a nice touch. I thought that made sense. And I don't care about All-Star games. I won't watch them anyway. So I won't watch them no matter what they do. But this idea of, setting the game back to... I was reading it, and as I'm reading it, I'm saying, this is the dumbest thing I've ever... If I read it to you, you'd say, are you serious? This is how they decide they're gonna honor the memory of Kobe Bryant. The score will be reset to 0-0 after the first and second quarters. How does that honor Kobe Bryant? All right. At the end of the third quarter, the total scores from each quarter will be combined as it would in a typical game. Okay, that's novel. So you add up the score from the first 3 quarters. Gee, that's something new. The fourth quarter will be untimed. Are we playing forever? Instead, a target score will be set by adding 24 points to the total of whichever team has the lead through 3 quarters. I mean, come on, this is just downright silly. Nothing to do with Kobe Bryant. This is just downright silly. I mean, this is a case of We are trying. This has nothing to do with Kobe Bryant. This has everything. And I'm not saying they don't want to honor Kobe Bryant. They do. What they're trying to do is take an all-star game that nobody watches and figure out a way to get somebody to watch it. It's the same thing the NFL does every year. They have to face facts. Nobody cares about these games. The skills competitions are more. I can watch the three-point shooting. I can't watch the game. I can watch a skills competition. I don't like the dunk contest. First of all, there's no way to score it. Oh, look at that dunk. Wow, wow. And the guy stands on the table and the guy does that. I mean, listen, who cares? I mean, there's nothing compelling about that. They all can dunk. So, I mean, that just doesn't work. But I actually like the three-point shooting. I think that's actually interesting sometimes. The game has no merit. Zero. And how about the fact that the league, and they quietly want to try to brush this under the mat, that the salary cap is going to go down in the NFL and the NBA, which means revenue is going down. TV ratings have not been good. They lost somewhere, depending on who you speak to, between $150 million and $200 million in gross revenues in China because of the incident in China. They lost. That cost the NBA over $200 million in gross revenues. So they're talking about the revenue, actually, the salary cap going down. And in this day and age, that does not happen very often. NBA has had a really tough time with their TV ratings. Very, very tough time. And we're into a new age now. And there's going to be a whole new wave of this stuff. And it's going to pick up for them in the years to come with gambling and with streaming and everything else. I don't think there's any question. But they're going to have to be patient. And right now, it has not been a great time for them. And that's why they were hoping to get a lift from Zion, because of the fact that their TV ratings, their ratings have not been good in any way. So anybody who was going to bring anything to the dance was going to be a welcome. But having LeBron back in the playoffs this year will be a very much a positive for them. Because I can tell you right now, I missed watching him in the playoffs last year a lot. I watched fewer NBA playoff games last year with him not there than him there. No question about it. With the first pick in the plumbing and heating supply draft, contractors select supplyhouse.com. Take the field at supplyhouse.com on Monday, February 3rd, to get 1% off for each touchdown scored in the big game. Take it to the house, supplyhouse.com. We'll be right back. That is a long time. And he has had a wonderful career. He really has. He's been an incredibly good day in, day out coach. And he's been lumped with the guys that you don't want to be lumped with, because right now history has lumped him in that bin with Marty Schottenheimer and Chuck Knox, guys who have had a lot of success in the regular season, only to be haunted by postseason games. If you go back and look at the history, nobody was more haunted by postseason games than Marty Schottenheimer was. I mean, it was unbelievable things that went on. I mean, John Elway took teams into Cleveland that had no chance to win and won. I mean, just crazy stuff that went on. But Andy, right now, when you look at it, he's won 207 regular season games. That's a lot. You win 200 games in this league. Think about it. He's won 10 or more games 14 different years. Hard to win 10 games in that league. Do it 14 times. In Kansas City, he's had all winning seasons. He's won double digits all but 1 year. He's been to the playoffs all but 1 year. That's a great run since he went to Kansas City. I mean, when he left Philly, everyone was like, "Oh, well, the game's passed him by." Well, he's gone to Kansas City. He's put in an offense that everybody loves. They play in front of full houses every game. You can't get a seat to their games. The people worship the team. They're exciting to watch. They got a great young quarterback, and they're a lot of fun. And here they are. They should have been in the Super Bowl last year. They messed it up. Now they're here this year. You just hope this isn't the climb one more time. You know what Pat Riley used to call the innocent climb, where every time it's another step. Last year, they lost a heartbreaking game despite 31 second-half points against the Pats and losing the AFC title game. This year, they get past the AFC title game. Now, you don't want to see them get beat in this spot and have to come back and do this again because, you know what, I think it's too hard to do. Think about how many things had to break their way this year. The Pats lost to the Dolphins, which gave them a bye. The Ravens lost to the Titans. They spotted a playoff team 24-point lead. Think about that. Remember when you were sitting there a couple of weeks ago and you were staring at the screen and the Chiefs were down 24-0 to the Texans? And I know now you thought, oh, wow, you know what? That's easy. I guarantee you, a lot of people listening right now said this game is over. It was 24-0. It wasn't 7-0. It was 24-0. Then they spot a 10-point lead to the Titans the next game. So think of all the things they've had to overcome this year to get back and get past the same spot they got to last year. You don't want to try and have to do this again. And it is a fact that in this day and age, where no matter what sport you're talking about, we have made it that the playoffs are what matters. The regular seasons have been devalued. The postseason is, there are more layers to the postseasons now. There are more games in the postseason now. And the postseason is how we value players, how we value coaches. We value the guy who can get to the big game and win it. We don't want to hear excuses. We don't want to hear how he got there. It just shows you how it changes everything. I'll give you the perfect example of this. A couple of years ago, I remember taking phone calls on the fan, and some of you remember this, where people were calling up telling me that Villanova had to fire Jay Wright because he couldn't win the big NCAA tournament game. This is a guy who had strung together 3 or 4 straight 30-win seasons at Villanova, had them in the top 10 as a fixture year after year after year. But something would happen. He had once been to a Final Four, but something would, in recent years had happened where they had gotten picked off a couple of times in the second round or in the regional semis. And they had gone home and hadn't gotten to the Final Eight and hadn't gotten to the Final Four and hadn't taken it all the way. And now all of a sudden he was the guy who couldn't win the big one, that label of labels. So look now, a couple of years later, same coach, same program. But what has happened is he's had 2 magical NCAA tournament runs. So now what is he? He's coach of the decade. He's a Hall of Fame coach. He's one of the iconic coaches of this generation. What changed? A couple of his kids made big shots in big spots. When they were down 5 to West Virginia, they scored about 6 straight baskets. That changed. They played a really nasty West Virginia team. And the ball bounced their way in a game that could have gone either way. And then after that, they ran the table. And then they got hot the second time around and had a really great team and won a pair of championships in 3 years. And now he's gone from that guy who couldn't win a big game and you guys wanted fired to a guy now who's this iconic coach. That's how quickly it changes. And I'll never forget what Dean Smith said to a bunch of us at that building, because Dean Smith had been criticized so many times for not winning the quote-unquote big one. He had been to the Final Four so many times and he had lost. And he had lost to Dean Smith, and he had lost to Bob Knight, and he had lost to great coaches and great teams and great players. And he finally wins it as Jordan makes a basket in the best game I've ever seen in my life. Still the best game I've ever seen played between two college teams. And they win a championship. And he was standing there waiting to go to the podium, and you could tell he was a little embarrassed. And he said, "Am I a better coach now than I was 15 minutes ago?" And of course the answer was no. But you know what? To everybody, the answer was yes. Because we reward the guy who wins the big game. We reward the payoff. The other part is harder. The other part is really the nuts and bolts, the ability to go there and build a program that's sustaining, that wins year after year, that gets the players and can win season after season and knock off the 25-win seasons in college basketball or the, 55-win seasons in the NBA or the, 11, 12-win seasons in the NFL. And you take them for granted until your team goes through a run of, not being able to win more than 4 or 5 games in a year. Then you beg to have those 12-win teams or 11-win teams that everybody takes for granted when you don't win it at all. But that's the essence of the game we play. So, Andy Reid right now, so much the focal point of this weekend. On Monday morning, if his team falls short, I guarantee you, we come in here on Monday, I will find you a story that will say that he is a choking dog who's never going to win a big game and how it's over for Andy and he's nothing but a big disappointment. Or if they should finally have their moment and he gets to lift that trophy finally with the big smile on his face and he finally gets to do that, which will make a lot of us very happy. We'll hear how now that he is this legendary coach who has, done this incredible job and built this, machine in the Midwest. There's no in between. We reward the people who win the big game. And in nowhere in America is there a bigger difference. Nowhere. Than between winning and losing the Super Bowl. I've made this comment many times, and I think some people think I'm nuts about it, but it's 100% true. You are much better off losing in the conference championship game than you are losing in the Super Bowl. Nobody cares. Nobody knocks you for losing in the conference championship game. But losing the Super Bowl, and God forbid, get beat up in the Super Bowl, and it is a negative. It is a mark against you. You're better off not getting there. You are better off not getting there than going there and getting drubbed. That will hurt you more in your career than not getting there. Because the idea is that there should be an expectation that when you get there, you know what to do when you get there. That you have what it takes to do it right when you get there. God forbid you go there and do terribly. I'm telling you, John Elway took teams there that had no right being there. They had not a chance in the world, and they had no right being there. And he was beat to a pulp, called every name in the book, and even called names by Terry Bradshaw. And he came back with a team that could win, and all of a sudden he's John Wayne. And all of a sudden he's this whirling dervish who's, a proven winner, and he was better in the games where he took the team there on his back. But it didn't matter. You can't go to this game and fall on your face. If you do, you can't live it down. The difference between winning and losing this game is enormous. There's no other game like it. You go to the World Series. As an opponent, you lose, you still got to the World Series. You go to the NBA Finals, hey, you got to the Finals. You come here and get beat, shame on you. When you come to this game, there's no 2nd place. It's all or nothing. It's push your chips in the middle of the table. It's all or nothing. It is a winner take all, zero sum game. That's all it is. That's what the Super Bowl is. And nothing else is like this. I had a coach say to me once, how come I don't get any credit for going to a Super Bowl? I said, credit? It's a knock that you went there and lost. Not a positive. People have made fun of the Bills. And I've had coaches tell me one of the most impressive things they've ever seen in sports was the Bills getting to the Super Bowl 4 years in a row. And they became the butt of jokes because they lost all four. And they had to accomplish incredible things to win those games that got. You know how many games they had to win to get there 400 times in a row? We might never see that again in our lifetime. I mean, that's an incredible achievement. And it's weird that they would go there 4 times and lose. And again, and the game seemed to get, they played too close and too bad. But the point is that it became a negative. So going there is what it's about. You got to go there, and when you get there, you got to win it. And that's what Andy Reid faces this week. So I'll keep my fingers crossed because I'd hate to be thinking about that, leaving that building, or what he's going to face should he fall short again. There'll be an empty feeling if that's the case. Tomorrow we'll have predictions and everything else. We'll see you at 5 on radio.com, 6 on The Fan. Enjoy your Thursday evening, everybody.